Hello, friends. I, Gennia Nuh, project lead for the Story Project 11 by www.tellmeyourstory.biz, welcome you to this first session of the month of the Letters from Santa series. The project Letters from Santa is addressed to parents and children. Though Santa is a mythical creation, most of us are blessed with the participation of our parents, especially the mothers in our life who look after us, take care of us, fulfill our wishes, and guide us in the right path. This project aims at providing insightful guidance and evoke interest in certain aspects of life that may shape the life of children better. I request my panelists to just mute their speaker so that my voice doesn't echo. Yeah, thank you so much. And today I'm privileged to have Dr. Shruti Das, Dr. Sharmila Paul, and Yashika Doshi for the panel discussion titled Stories of Empathy and Compassion. Let me begin with introducing the panelists. Dr. Shruti Das is a professor of English in Baharampur University. She is a creative writer, poet, and a critic of international repute. She has published 11 books and over 70 research articles. Her creative writing is published internationally. She is a translator and public speaker. She received international acclaim and has been placed in the bibliography of Commonwealth writers for her first volume of poems, and been awarded the Author of the Month, April 2017, by Spillwords, an international e-journal. Coming to our second panelist, Dr. Sharmila Paul is an assistant professor at the Department of English, Rani Birla Girls College. She has been awarded her doctoral degree by the Department of English, University of Kalyani, India, on translation studies in 2019. She's the chief editor of TMYA's Review and have completed projects in collaboration with global universities. She has published research articles and translated pieces in international journals of repute and has also presented papers in various national and international seminars and conferences. And last, an economist by the day and a writer in the search of a perfect cup of coffee, Yashika Doshi started writing because to her, it felt like coming home and exploring different worlds at the same time. She believes that the smallest act of kindness takes one a long way and that magic does exist in falling stars as well as in the calmness one feels by being around loved ones. Some of her other favorite things include handwritten letters, the smell of old books, and comfortable silences. So let's set sailing. Let's do the first question of this session, requesting you all to tell us the moments of empathy and compassion that you may have experienced in your tender years and remember the kindness till date. What is so special about it and what did you learn from it? Tell me your story. Let me begin with Dr. Shruti.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Gennia, for such lovely, kind words of introduction. I'm so happy to be here today. And well, we have been telling stories all the time, but thinking that it's a story of empathy, it makes it more special. Well, I remember when I was in school, I there was a storm, a big storm, and then after the storm, we came out and we were playing, and we saw a little dog. Well, it was not so little, it was an adult dog. It came limping, and I don't know why it chose to come and stand by me. And I saw that it was lost, maybe from its pack or from whatever it had come there. So I went, asked my mother, and she gave me some warm food for it. So I gave the dog some warm food. And every day the story continued. I would come from school and he would be waiting for me, and I would give him some small little ETs and whatever. And, it somehow started protecting me. we used to go in a rickshaw to school, like a tricycle rickshaw, cycle rickshaw. And this dog used to follow quite a distance. And if, when we were playing, if any adult came near me or anything, it used to be so protective that he used to kind of bark at them and shoo them off. And, like I was to be constantly protected like a princess. And somehow, there were some people in the neighborhood, some boys and some girls, who didn't take to it. So they used to throw stones because it was a stray dog. They used to throw stones at it, and they used to injure him. And the poor fellow, one day he was so injured, he came to me and he showed me his head, which had a big mark, a wound there, and it was bleeding, and he was kind of limping again. So I went home and I got Dettol and cotton and an ointment. And you see, it's a stray dog, and naturally my mom was a little scared. And but this dog didn't smart at the stinging Dettol, didn't say anything. I know it was whining, like but it showed its head to me. And when I dressed him, I put some ointment. The neighbors were very angry, and well, and this story continued. The dog was really attached to me, though it never came into our house. It was always outside our apartment, our flat. We were in a government flat, and it was outside. And well, it used to come for food. It used to lick my hand, and it used to be very, very protective towards me. So, but unfortunately, one day it never came. Okay, and it stopped coming. And some people told me that other people had poisoned it. So, this has really hurt me and remained with me. So, when I see a dog, a street dog, or a lost cat, or even a child, I just, because the dog used to communicate with me, I used to talk to the dog in human language, and the dog possibly thought that I was his sister, or I was somebody related to him. So he used to really come to me all the time and be protective, more protective than my brother would be. And I was heartbroken when someone told me. I waited for the dog, I waited and waited and waited, and I was heartbroken when someone told me that it was poisoned. And this has left an impact on me, and I have always felt myself, I would always thought that if I were an animal, if I were a destitute, and people treated me like this, how would I feel? And this has stayed with me till today. So maybe it'll go with me to the grave. But I feel, I don't feel sympathetic, but I have, my heart goes out. So this has really remained with me.
Yes, it's sometimes quite difficult to understand the kind of cruelty and hatred that can come out of beings like humans like us. You see, humans, though civilized, means we come from the age of civilization, we are so called the superior beings. We have so put ourselves higher up in the chain just on the count of maybe intellectual superiority or whatever superiority humans have categorized. But somewhere this barbaric the nature has still remained in us, and it's quite unexplainable as to why we do this kind of things, and particularly to animate objects who are vulnerable, who are who do not have a voice. It's a kind of an exertion of domination, an exertion of power that gives a kind of sadistic pleasure. So, somewhere, these acts do tell us that even though in the exterior we are civilized, somewhere civilized, means we still need to go a long way to be mentally compassionate and civilized and empathetic to creatures who are not only humans and who are not only so called inferior to us, but to everyone. So, yes, your story really
Thank you very much. This
has.
is really, this is true. We think that we're very civilized, but we do not feel for others. It's some kind of intolerance, not only towards that animal, but towards some little child who is not your own but is caring for other animals. So, I thought that it was not only their hatred for the animal, but it was their insecurity. We humans have a feeling of insecurity which makes us
Yes,
do these hateful actions. It's always having more power over others. Like if I hurt this little girl, then something. I'm just exercising my power, my dominance in this society. It was like that. They didn't consider the feeling of a little girl. They didn't consider the feeling of an animal who was understanding the language of the human. Like I used to just talk to it as I would my little sister or my kid brother or somebody, maybe in baby language or something like that, because I was very little then. And this happens. And when we are cruel to parrots, when we keep them in cages, we clip their wings time and again. When people do that, I really feel sad because I just remember that dog all the time. I don't know, in my waking hours, I just feel that. And human beings always have thought that we are greater than everything. But gradually, nature is showing us that we are not. So we should understand the story of nature, the story of compassion, if we have to, be called actual rational human beings.
yes. Rational and emotional beings.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Now, coming to Yashika. Yashika, if you could tell your story.
Yeah, it's just so heartwarming to be here, first of all. Thank you for inviting me. And I mean, we are already off to like, beautiful, beautiful and heartwarming start. Like, I personally am too scared of animals. So, I just believe in like letting them be and like me be by myself. So, yeah, but sorry. Yeah, so what I wanted to share today was something that actually happened when I was in middle school. Yeah, and I lost one of my grandparents back then, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. And as a child, I was just feeling so lost, because there's someone like, you rush to her arms at the end of the day when, mom is shouting at you for not finishing your homework in time. And this is someone you go to that, oh, I saw this teddy bear the other day, like my birthday's coming up. So, like, will you get that for me? And this is just someone whom maybe it's also the gender thing that you just want like that hug from her at the end of the day. Grandpa's always been more stern and more aloof, but then grandma's just like, okay, you just want to like feel that warmth. And it actually happened when we as a family were away on a trip, and then she was at home with my grandfather. And it just, we don't know what like as kids, as me and my like brother, we did not know. He's still younger than I was. I don't even know if he remembers. But then this happened and we come home, and it's just that suddenly she's not there, you know and we were like, oh, okay, like we've lost her. Someone told to us kids that there are these so many relatives at home, like we are very sorry, you've lost your grandmother. And we're like, what do you mean lost? Like, is she not around the house? Is she? And then there are people crying. And this is all I remember from that evening. Once we were back and we cut the trip short and we just came back. Next day, like nothing. It was just like a stream of relatives and like, just that constant like amount of emptiness, just like aching emptiness. The week later, when I went to school, all of our best friends turn up there, and you have these like school groups, and these two, three girls came up to me and they're like, "Oh, we heard that you were not in school for 3 days. That's why we brought you like, homework, and we got you this and we got you that." But not one of them told me that they are sorry for me. And I don't know why, but I actually appreciated that. Because when you say that you're sorry for someone else's loss, you're just like kind of reiterating the entire thing on them and trying to like bring back the entire moment. But all they did was try to bring me and kind of, put me on like today's ground. And they are like, "We did this for you for the 3 days that you were not here." And they just like sat with me. They just like brought me my favorite food. They just like gave me hugs, but never once did they make me feel that there is loss in my life. That's it. And that just like probably remains one of my most beautiful memories from that time, because I found like some amount of light in that loss. And that was because of the, I don't know, the empathy that, we as young girls found with each other. So I was like probably 10 or 11. So yeah, that.
Yes, that is one big gaping hole that you are left with, and
Yeah.
it creates a kind of a deep impact because we consider our parents and grandparents to be an inevitable and means inevitable rock in our life. The very fact that they are also subject to means mortality is something that we can't grasp. So but I appreciate that your friends did that,
Yeah.
means to make you feel that it's okay and this is normal and you should come back to ground zero that you are in, face life as the wave of life goes
Yeah.
on. The means that is a really great gesture. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that story. Coming to Dr. Sharmila, I know that you are not comfortable with questions and with this kind of series, but still, I would like you, if you can recount one instance where you have felt this moment of empathy and compassion that you experienced in your tender years during your childhood days. Ma'am, I guess you are on mute, or actually, we are not able to hear you. So, could you just Okay, I guess you're having an issue with your speaker. So we will come back to the question again later on. So moving forward to the second question of the session, I would like to begin again this time with Dr. Shruti. Ma'am, who do you think are most deprived of empathy and compassion from society in general? Means I believe talking about them would help raise awareness, and many of us can choose to make a difference. Yeah, fine.
Thank you for that question. So, I think um, it's the most deprived are the street children, the orphans who are left on the streets, and then animals. Of course, there are a lot of animal lovers who want to take care of animals, feed them. But when you go look at the ground reality of these street urchins or these small children who are left on the streets by their mothers, or mothers and parents are destitute and they don't really care about the children, and they are near the railway station, and some of them lick dendrite for drugs, and you see they work, they're very small, they don't understand, they're made to beg, they are made to work in places where they should not be working. These people are special, and I think society should take care of them. In our place, we had a gentleman who got a Padma Shri. He was T. Rao, right? He was a war veteran and he had a tea stall. His entire earnings were from his tea stall, and he was adopting these children. His wife was dead. He has a daughter who has done MBA and she is established. But this fellow had a school and he was going around picking up slum children, picking up these destitute children, giving them a good bath, good food, and he was like, by good food, I mean at least 2 square meals a day, and he was educating them. Suppose somebody was talented enough to, he would be a singer, he would nurture them, and he would call all of us, and we donated some money, of course, nothing great, but we did that, and then the collector came out to help him. And you see, they are the special people, because if you don't take care of them, then we will have crime, then we will have all these have nots, and they actually need love, they need empathy more than animals. These children, nobody looks at them, they are no children lovers. So I have personally interacted with them and have seen how violent they become, how difficult it is to even talk to them, because they always think that you are going to do something bad to them. They try to steal from you, they don't understand. But once they start understanding, they trust you, they are the best. And they are so talented, you can make them, you can educate them, they can become officers, engineers, whatever, painters, singers, performing artists, writers. You just have to take care of them, and this is society's responsibility, and none of us have thought about it. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yes, even I actually travel on a daily basis from Kolkata to Barashat on account of my work. So while coming back, I board the metro, and at the Domdom station, I have seen a group of children. They are willingly, means they are educated by two of the ladies over there who come daily to just teach them, and they do not come from very privileged backgrounds. Means when you look at them, you see that these two ladies have taken them under their wing to educate them, to make then they are economic insufficiency, they this little bit of thing that is giving them education, making their life better for those few hours, make a lot of impact on the children. The happiness that they have, some there are things that I don't witness in my students, but there are moments of happiness when they get the books in their hands, used books, used material, the happiness that is reflected, that I often see when I come back en route, and that has made me question that yes, life is not that hard, it can be made better, because if we become compassionate, if we take a step forward in improving the standard of humanity, so as to say, so yes, we can make little changes, we can make put our little bit of efforts in order to make our lives, means not only us but also their life better. And yes, children being a very impressionable age, it's easy to mold them the way you want. They're like clay, and you just have to put the best of yourselves to make them beautiful potteries, and you also have to put the best of your hatred to make them as cruel as you want them to be. So it's very necessary for the society to come forward and take care of these children at such a young age, so that the society can be a better place to live in. Because remember, the people that we are, whom we are afraid of, are the products of our own hatred, are the products of our own shirking of our responsibility
Yeah,
towards
our
them.
own
So
neglect.
yes,
We have been
yes,
neglecting them.
it's
And with
yes. So
education, first it is food, and after food
yeah,
is education.
yes,
They
food
need to
is
be
very
taken care
essential.
of.
Yes, food is very
They need
essential.
to,
Means
yeah, and they need to
yeah,
trust you that you're not giving them food because you want something from them.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
and
This
yeah,
is very
you
essential.
rightly said people who we are afraid of today were once little children who needed nurture, who needed
Yes.
some kind of love. Love can cure everything.
Yes. Means yes, it does, and I have seen that. So yes. So moving forward, Shabila ma'am, since you are back live, so ma'am, would you like to take on this question since you were not there? So I would like to repeat this. Oh, the question is here displayed. So who do you think are most deprived of empathy and compassion from society in general, and who do you believe means, how do you think means, talking about them would help raise awareness, and many of us can choose to make a difference? Yes. So how do you think we can do that, and to whom we should do it?
Thank you so much, Meena, and extremely sorry for that technical issue. So, taking a trail from the discussion, I was thinking that since we are already talking about the children, of course, children are mostly in need of our kindness and our empathy, because, as you rightly pointed out, that children they are of such impressionable nature that any act of kindness uh, gives them a lot of impacts them to a greater extent. But if you start thinking in terms of a very specific group of people, the people who are mostly destitute. And here I would like to point out the children who are very, very unfortunate to have been born in the red light areas. These are the children who have actually no control of where they are born, and it's just because of their sheer luck that they are born and they have to grow up in a surrounding which I don't think is perfect or suitable for conducive for a child to grow up. And uh, quite unfortunately, these children they have to go through they from very young age they have to experience a lot of violence and such things which can distort a child's psychological cohesion, a child's psychological equilibrium, which ultimately can affect the child in the long run. And I know that these days we have many NGOs and people, even in individual capacities or in groups, those who work for the rehabilitation of the children. They're trying their best to provide them good education. It's also very important that we think in terms of their mental health. I mean, not only thinking about the physical condition, the lived reality in which they are growing up, but also providing them a certain surrounding in which they feel loved, being loved by others, and they experience a lot of kindness from others, which I believe would, impact them to a certain extent where they themselves can return that act of kindness or that act of love when they grow up. So this, I think, is something which needs to be talked about a lot, and this is one area where we as a society do not pay as much attention as we should pay. I mean, children in general, they need always the act of kindness, our empathy, and our compassion. But those are the children who I think need a special care from people like us who otherwise would not pay much attention to their condition. So if we can take that extra effort of talking about them, discussing their situation, and if we can contribute in our own ways, just by talking about them, just by bringing their issue to the fore, if we can do that much from our part, then I think that can make a lot of difference to the condition of those children.
I agree. Yes, it's very necessary. It's a necessity to see that children, particularly who are born in the red light area, who have no control over their destiny and who have no control over the lived reality that they have been pushed into, they should be given an agency to improve their life and to escape the stigma and come out into a so-called normal society, to have a normal life, because the kind of stigma that they carry, the kind of burden that they carry from being born into that particular space, it's not only a physical hazard but also a mental hazard, and it impacts them to an extent that they can never get normalized. So it's necessary that we relocate them or rehabilitate them to centers which who can take care of them and not exploit them, so as to say, because we have seen a lot of organizations coming forward to help them, but at the same time they do exploit them. So it's necessary that not only the society but also government should take certain steps. And yes, we being a part of the society, we should also be quite careful in how we treat them and how, whether they are being taken care of. These are the little things that we can do, and talking about them, obviously that creates a sense of awareness, that creates a sense of critical thinking as to, yes, these are also the aspects and these are also part and parcel of our society, so we should be the one taking care of them. So yes, that's a good point. Coming to Yashika, what is your take on this particular question?
I believe, of course, like as much as I agree that children and often kids and people who actually don't have like the same amount of, they don't come from a place of privilege. I also do believe that the other lens that I see this question from is starting at home. And according to me, I feel like people who are, if not the most deprived, are very very deprived of like empathy and compassion and just a kindness in general, are firstly, it's a two part answer. Firstly, I feel like the garbage pickers who come home and who are just like literally just picking up your litter and making sure that it is going at the dumping ground and not on the street. And that's just such a phenomenal task. If it's literally the dirtiest job in the world, and they do that, they do it like clockwork. They come in every morning, evening, probably for some people, and they just like ensure that all the dirtiness is actually like off the streets. Just imagine like one morning they don't come and every road is just filled with garbage, right? And no one says hello to them. They just do their job silently, but just the power that they hold, that if they don't turn up, this is the alternative which is going to happen. And I've seen so many people like kind of avoid them on the street or like try to bypass them, because of course they're going to smell. Their work is like that. It is not their fault. They are also earning a living for their family or for themselves, like whatever the case be. So I just feel like this is one thing, and the other is like towards like the domestic workers who come at home to help us. Like they are just helping you run your own house. This is not their house. It's not like they are responsible for everything, so we are seeking help from them. We are not like just being like, okay, you do everything and I'm just gonna like you know I think it can all begin from like helping them and actually teaching, using their examples to teach kids as well. Like if you have like clothes, toys, and if you just want to donate it outside, sure, but why not start at home? What if the domestic worker has kids of her own? What if like they have someone they can give it to, like about food, leftovers, everything. Like we can actually and package it in a proper way. I've seen so many people do this. They just like leave leftovers and be like, oh, okay, you take this. Why? They are also eating. They must be giving the leftover chocolate cake which you cut yesterday to their kid, right? Like why don't we pack half of that food for like the garbage picker? What if they have kids? What if they also want to, like, they like that food? We don't know. Like just taking like a second of the day to speak to them, I think that will have like a very rippling kind of effect. And I feel like we can just use that example, start at home, start basic, and just like build from there. So I feel they're really deprived of empathy. And it just, this actually, it's very saddening that I'm only understanding this after I became a teenager, after I started understanding what empathy is. Because in school, like, if one class on Pythagoras theorem is missed and compassion is taught, maybe I would have turned out to be a much better, like, human being than I am right now. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you so much, Yashika. Yes, that is also a big question that we, instead of calling on big things that needs to be done, I think compassion and empathy should begin at home. And once you teach every child at home to teach means to behave, as to how to behave with an elder who is from a different occupation or an occupation that socially seems inferior, I think the mindset will change then and there. So it's not only the children, but also the people who are basically doing thankless jobs. They too feel that yes, they are prized people in the society doing something better for the society. Thank you, Yashika. Coming to the third question of the session. Now, with the world adapting to virtual etiquettes at a very rapid pace, of course, do you think qualities like empathy and passion are coming down? It's because, with reference to the social media behavior, where strangers conveniently slip into verbal cruelty from behind their anonymous identity. Means it's quite easy to ambush people from behind an anonymous identity. You are absolutely in the dark. Nobody gets to spot you. Nobody gets to zone down on you. So, do you think these were always the real faces that camouflaged behind mandatory courtesies or face to face meetings? I would like to begin with Sharmila ma'am this time.
Yeah, actually, you're quite right because these were the people who have always been hiding such thoughts behind their as you said, the molds of courtesy. They have always been camouflaged this, and it's only because social media has provided them with the garb of anonymity that they can use, and using that they are putting that the, I would call it the filth that was there inside them, and they are kind of putting it out to the world. But while saying so, at the same time, I also believed that, since social media has kind of privileged us with the capacity to communicate with people across the world with whom it was earlier very difficult to remain connected to. Therefore it has also given opportunity to people to connect, and the benefit of the same, where people use social media to show their kindness, their empathy. The best example of that, I think, we all have experienced during the time of COVID, where unknown people who were absolutely not connected to each other, who did not know each other, they extended their helping hand with all sorts of help that they could provide others with when they were in need, be it arranging oxygen for them, be it providing food to the people who were affected by COVID, reaching out to them. So I guess social media during that time showed us that it was not only a means of people hiding behind that garb of anonymity and you know uh, uh, they expressing the black side, as we can call that. At the same time, we have also seen the other side of it, where people came out and they reached out to people. They used this as a means to do their best, where people not only through these media connections but also physically reached out to people to help them out with in any way possible. So that way we can say that social media not only is uh, the storehouse of all the all the garbage, as you can call that, emotional garbage, where people can take names, they can call each other certain things which otherwise in physical reality they won't dare to. But at the same time, we have been introduced to that side of people's empathy and kindness, where it really kind of saved people's lives during the moments of crisis. So I would like to believe that if the other side exists, then this side too exists, and it is a matter of choice for the people who use social media to, they always have this opportunity to restrict themselves to the kind of people that they allow to have access to their media handles. I mean, with uh, people who are rather popular, like the influencers, the actors, or people in such profession where their fan base matters a lot to their profession, where people really look forward to gain more number of followers these days, which really matters to their profession. Apart from them, others, they always have the choice to restrict themselves or their the access to their social media handles to people whom they want to. So that way we can always create a surrounding for us, we can always create an environment, an ecosystem where people whom we really connect to can come together, and we always extend that helping hand through which we can express our sympathy, our empathy, and our acts of kindness.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for pointing not only the negative side as well as the positive side of using social communication to make this place a better world and to show compassion and empathy in a better fashion, that too in a digital fashion. So, coming to Yashika, Yashika, what is your take on this particular question?
I don't think there's much to add actually after Sarmila. It just so like perfectly, it was such a perfectly round up answer, right? So I completely agree. And just like my two pennies and a very short answer to this is I agree, but then I have also seen like I would actually tilt towards like the negative side. Right, like the platform which allows you this anonymity, and it's just that you are left to guess that what is driving these people, right? And I'm talking about everything, right from like social media random DMs to like actually hacking. And this is actually coming from a very real life example, right? Like your WhatsApp getting hacked, your Instagram getting hacked, and we just keep seeing these on like people's stories. And this is a very like today day situation, like it's happening as I'm speaking, and it's just so scary, and it just makes me think very very hard, and it just makes me scared that we are growing up in a world, and like our future generation will grow up in a world where we thought technology is going to do more good, they will be born with the thought that social media and technology is actually going to do more harm, and then that completely like alters your mindset. So I would say, like, with this virtual reality, and like holding meetings, and then like giving opinions on like online forums, and like there are places different, if I want to name platforms. But then yeah, I do believe that these qualities are actually coming down. So I mean, I agree with ma'am, but then I feel like it's more of a like 70-30 situation, and then you just have to like kind of filter through, like and you just have to like believe really 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 hard that as kind as you want to be to the world, one day the world will return that favor. But then whatever kindness and empathy you are showing, always let it be like just like kind of unconventional also, and kind of don't expect anything, right? You just continue doing good, and then good will definitely come back. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you so much, Yashika. Yes, don't expect much. That's a good thing. Yes, that's a good lesson in today's day. So, ma'am, Dr. Shruti, ma'am, what is your take on this particular question?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and I've been listening to both Yashika and Sharmila. I do agree with them to a certain point, but I have been following certain people on Twitter, and I see that they do not have real names. And when, had it been a real time meeting, they would have camouflage their emotions and words, dirty words that are there all across Twitter, and how bad it would be for these social personalities on whom they are applying these things. Well, they are, had they been in a face-to-face meeting with these people, they certainly wouldn't be doing that, because it is very difficult to understand what a person is going through when you become judgmental or very casually fling abusive words or judgmental words without any courtesy or any empathy for the person who's going through a particular situation. And people, I have noticed, have no patience or empathy for real emotions, real time emotions, because in social media, in the virtual media, they have a facade, and they do not want to look beyond that facade or behind that, what exists, the real time things that exist behind that facade. So, when we talk about sympathy during the COVID time, lots of people donated a lot of money, and that was so good. They took a lot of care, and then, there was a communication even during storms and floods and all those natural disasters. Social media becomes very active when somebody is lost. Actually, I have benefited a lot from this virtual media and all that, because I lost my luggage in the US in July last, and it was because of social media, Twitter, and Facebook, and all these things that I got back my suitcase within, 3 days, without anything being lost there. And that is definitely the advantage. And I really bless the people who just gather around people I didn't know, who were full of empathy and wrote to external ministry and blah blah everywhere. Well, but uh, there are some times when people exploit this social media, and they play upon the compassion of other people. I know some people who have used the Milap app and the other apps where they have collected money saying that someone was sick or somebody needed COVID treatment, some child was an orphan. But I have really seen how they have been hoodwinking people and how they have been collecting lakhs of rupees. So this is unfortunate, because empathy then is being absolutely boomeranged on your face. People are being cheated. So these netizens do not have morals. Some of these netizens do not have morals. And I do believe that etiquettes are coming down, because these people have no patience to listen to the whole story, because they would comment like anything without understanding. See, for example, what happened to Arbab Khan. Is his name Arbab Khan? Shah Rukh Khan's son. No, Arman Khan. What's his name?
Aryan Khan.
Aryan.
Aryan
Aryan.
Khan.
So sorry. I'm so sorry. I beg your pardon. Aryan Khan. Nobody understood what that child was going through, but people just came out with all kinds of words, some, as if, like they were the moralizers of the society, and they would are the do-gooders, and they've never done anything like this in their childhood. It's traumatic not only for the child, it's traumatic for the parents, it's traumatic for relatives, and it misguides judgments of the court and the police. You see, these things is what is bad about virtual media or social media. Where is the etiquette then? Where is the empathy then? That's my
Yes,
take
that's
on
a big question.
it. I don't want to sound negative,
That's
because these two girls have said wonderful, positive things, but I wanted to show the other side of the coin as well.
Yes, and this discussion is meant to show the many facets of this society that we live in. There are people who see the positive side, there are people who see the 60-40 or the 70-30 side, and there are people who see the darker side of life and take lessons from it as well. So, yes, This discussion is meant to be like that. So, yes, coming to the fourth question of the session, sometimes cultural differences between people coming from different countries or communities are perceived as unkind, careless, or arrogant. It causes miscommunications and misunderstandings. Would you have a personal story to share on this? Please tell us our thoughts. So, I'd like to begin with Yashika this time.
Sure. Sorry, can I just read the question if that's fine? It's not like showing up on. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is helpful. Like, I'm just helps me like center my
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
questions are way too big, and sometimes it really means the moment it starts and the moment it
Yeah.
ends, maybe you don't remember the beginning. I'm so sorry.
No, no, of course, no. But this is just like really helpful, right? I mean, I love the
Yeah.
format. But yeah, I completely agree. One, that cultural differences and just the sheer fact that with like, people coming in constant contact with people, especially like, before the pandemic, after the pandemic, with people traveling and everything opening up again, I just feel like we are continuously exposed to people from like different cultures. Given India is only so diverse and so rich, I'm talking about interstate, but I'm also talking about inter-country, right? And you cannot be expected to know everything. Neither can the other person be expected to know everything about you. Like how I am, born as a Gujarati, right? But then I also like have had friends from so many different communities, like professors and like peers now where I work, and you're just constantly like learning and upgrading and updating yourself. But about a personal story, I would say actually can share one. So I was pursuing my MSc economics in the University of Nottingham, right? And over there, like, this was not like a cultural shock, I would say. Neither was it something like that big. It's just something that I noticed was different. So a friend of and this friend, like a close friend of mine, was from a European country, right? And we just like end up meeting, like, at first day of class, first week of class or something, and we connected. We're like, oh hey, let's grab a meal after class. Now, being part of like an Indian family with all the, like, for lack of a better word, the tam jam that we do for every meal, I was like, oh okay, like, can we get like this thing and share and whatever. And she's like, share, what do you mean? And it's just that for them, it's like one meal is just for like one person. So like, if you're ending up taking like a sandwich, it's for you, or like a bowl of pasta, it's for you, or a soup, it's for you. And then the other person orders, like, and you actually have to like take permission if you want to like dip your spoon into their plate. And that just came, like, I come from a joint family, so for me it was like, okay, this is like a little like different, right? But then you just constantly learn, right? And then from that day I started appreciating like hers and her culture. And then she was like, no, in our, we're just like nuclear family, so we like take one meal of each and then just fill our stomach like that. We don't have the concept of ordering 2 3 dishes for the table and sharing, like, I've never heard of this. So I like, kind of educated her about like Indian customs and how welcoming we are with food especially, and all of that. So I completely agree. Like, it's not like I've not come across any like arrogant case or something unkind or something, but it's just that you're learning. And then that's just such a wonderful experience in itself. And then I'm sure that, that kind of cultivates a norm of kindness as well, because you're ready to listen. Right? Like, if I wanted to be arrogant or if she wanted to be arrogant, we could have been like, oh, no, 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 what is this? I don't understand, like, your norms. So, yeah, I feel like, it's cultural differences are there. All we have to do is listen and try to understand and learn. So, yeah.
Yeah, understanding and learning makes a whole lot of a difference, right?
Yeah.
Means there's nothing to look
And
down
communication.
upon somebody. Yes,
Yeah.
communication. Just communicate. I think that makes matters a lot less complex than we make it to be, actually. Things are actually not that complex, it's us making it
Actually,
complex.
exactly. Like,
So,
life
yes.
is difficult, but it's not complicated. So,
Yes, it is difficult. But yes, we can do things better if we make it just simple and communicate with each other without meaning
Yeah,
to
that
be
was a learning experience
offending.
actually, because when you're studying abroad, when you're working abroad, even for a like short amount of time, or in a state, actually, I would say, or even the city that you're, not born in. If I move out, if I come from Mumbai, I'm sitting in Mumbai right now, and I was like born here and raised here, but just like the entire experience of like moving away from the city. For some people, they go to another city to study, or another state, or another country. So these are like three tiers, and it just makes such a massive difference, and it just helps expand your horizons in very, very, very little ways, but then those go a long way. So yeah.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Yashika. Coming to Dr. Shruti, ma'am, what is your take on this question?
Thank you very much. Um, yes, cultural differences between people coming from different communities, different countries, and different classes do matter. I would like to tell an anecdote. Well, I'm full of anecdotes though. So, I was in Amsterdam and I was traveling to, my hotel was in the suburbans, and it was the last metro stop. So I got into the metro, it was evening, and I was alone. So, and there were not many people in the metro. So I was sitting there, and like all women, I had a big bag. And so I was just sitting there. And then suddenly, it stopped at some stoppage, and there was a Dutch African who got into the buggy, that coach. And well, there was no one else in the coach, or maybe there was one person who got down. So, and this person, when he came, he was wearing a lot of silver jewelry, like steel and silver and all kinds of things, with, those dreadlocks. Okay. So naturally, I got a little shocked. I mean, a little scared, because I was all alone in the coach. So, or maybe there were one or two people sitting towards the end of the coach. And what I did was, involuntarily, I held my, kind of held my purse closer. It was on the side, and then I just picked it up and held it. And, I don't know, something triggered, and this person imagined that I was looking down on him because he was African. He was a Dutch African, and he was not white, or he was not brown. And so I was looking down on him, and he started becoming very aggressive. And his body language, he showed me some vulgar sign languages. His body language was aggressive, and he was hurling some kind of abuse in a language that I didn't understand, possibly in Dutch. And this was because of his inherent insecurity, and over the ages, the discrimination that they have followed. But then, it was not, it was a culture difference. He didn't understand that I was a lone Indian woman who is scared of other people. And naturally, being a lone Indian woman, I was, trying to, kind of, all the time we have been taught to cover ourselves, protect ourselves. So I was trying to do something like that. I didn't mean anything. I didn't mean to discriminate against him or anything. But the aggression that he showed me, I was so scared. I actually, it was a culture shock to me. A kind of, I understood. I didn't understand then. I was absolutely scared. I was just looking if there was a CCTV in, or a CC camera in the coach, and luckily there was. And then, he got off on the stop just before mine, and he did some vulgar signs. But whatever, I was so relieved. And as an afterthought, I thought that this was possibly because he was used to being unkind, and I mean, I mean, people were unkind to him, and so probably he thought that I thought that because he was a Dutch African, he was a burglar or something like that, and he would be stealing my stuff, he would snatch my thing, maybe something he thought, and that was quite an experience. And this, the miscommunication, my actions, he didn't understand my culture, and my actions translated into a kind of threat to him, to his identity. And that is why he behaved in that manner. And his actions translated as a kind of real time threat to me. And so, it is very important that people understand each other and this miscommunication doesn't happen.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, this I have also faced, though few, but yes, they have actually put me in certain situations which I would not like to recollect. It's not really pleasant. So, yes, coming to Sharmila, ma'am, what's your take on this particular question?
So I do not have any such unpleasant memory as Shruti ma'am has just shared. Thankfully, so. But for me, something on the contrary happened. So when I was appointed as an assistant professor at Kalimpong College, and if you know that Kalimpong is within the state of West Bengal, so we people live in very close proximity as such, but we share so varied cultures. So initially, when I went there to join, and I was absolutely new all alone in a different culture altogether. Uh, it After some time struck me that maybe their way of greeting themselves and people from outside, and the way they communicated with people from outside, that was way more cordial than I was behaving with them. So in a way, sometimes later I used to feel like whether I started questioning myself whether I was being too formal or too unkind, and that questioning myself led to my reconsidering my behavior and gradually adopting the ways and modes in which they used to greet each other. I kind of tried to assimilate into their culture. So in a way, that helped me understanding their culture and rethinking my ways of behaving with them. So sometimes, yes, it also helps us to critically think of ourselves. So it's not always from the other side. And I mean, I really don't regret. I mean, accepting this fact that yes, this cultural difference initially created some thoughts on my mind, but gradually it helped me. The way they showed their kindness and they accepted me, that helped me a lot in kind of discovering my situation, my being in their culture. So that was a really, really nice experience on my part.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Coming to this session, means this section of the session, I will put very individual questions at you. So let me start with Dr. Shruti this time. Ma'am, you are a poet, and I would love to know from you the poetries or collection of poetries of your choice that inspired your empathy and compassion towards the world. And if it is possible, I would like to invite you to read one short poetry for our audience. Ma'am, you are on mute.
I have been um, kind of, scribbling lines all my life. Like since I remember, I have been scribbling nursery rhyme, something, and rhyming and all that. So basically, my grandfather's poetry collections influenced me. And then as I grew older, um, like when I went to school, I read the great British poets and American poets, and I got influenced by Emily Dickinson, and I got influenced by Sylvia Plath, and I got influenced by um, you know T.S. Eliot. Okay, and it's lots of modern poets have got influenced by them. And from India, I love Kamala Das's poetry, and it has taught me to look Emily Dickinson and those poets, Sylvia Plath. They have taught me Margaret Atwood and Toni Morrison, who write wonderful poetry, and I love reading that, and Simbarska as well. So, well, I think my poetry would be categorized woman and gender and what's my body. They are reflected. I would like to read one of my poems. If this is a very small poem which I wrote about my mother. It's been published in Spill Words, and it's called The Secret Smile. May I read it? Okay,
Sure,
sure.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. She is 90, my mother, sucks her thumb and calls for her abacus, asks me for her precious lollipop wrappers, sheepishly looks away and mumbles there was no electricity, so she hasn't done her homework. Papa comes in wobbling on his walking stick. She shies and pulls the quilt over her head. Master, tell Master I have a tummy ache today. I haven't done my homework, you see. How beautifully she recites her rhymes. How cheerfully I watch her. Papa's hands tremble. His tea spills over like the tears from his eyes. Quietly, he hobbles back out of a room. At least the patio knows him. He is uneasy with his memories and slipping suspenders, while she looks for those red and white ribbons to tie her ponytails with, and that bead sash her admirer had given her for a birthday.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I guess that has a lot of history behind it.
My mother is sick. She is 91 today, and
Okay.
she kind of, in and out of, conscious memory and some childhood memory. But my papa is normal, so papa is an imaginary figure.
Yes, your poetry actually said a lot of words. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Coming to Sharmila, ma'am. Ma'am, as a professor shaping the minds of the youth, how do you recollect your students showing empathy and compassion in the most difficult times? Do you think such moments lead to some kind of self discovery for the other observers as well?
Truly so. As I was telling you, these time, this period of lockdown, which was in general also we often come across such gestures of kindness from the students, and we often do not pay as much attention to these things as we should, I think. But that was the time when all of a sudden everything was come to a halt, and we literally were locked inside our homes. We couldn't communicate meaningfully. Then gradually there was a phase when the online classes started, and as classes start, can the exams be far behind? So eventually the exams also were knocking on the doors. It was at that point of time when we were constantly receiving messages and information of some of the students being affected, being ill, some of the family members being ill, and at times they had to take charge of the entire family, taking care of their near and dear ones. Some people in the family or in the extended family, often they passed away. So to grab with that situation and to deal with the shock that it caused, the pain, trauma, everything together, that was the time when I noticed that the pe- the students, the pupils who were going through this phase, they got a lot of support from their peers, their classmates, and in a way they kind of jumped into the situation to help those students. And more than us, it was their classmates who helped them with every means possible, and literally to help them to get through the university exam as well as what I would call the exam of life. So that was a phase which showed us how these young people, the young kids, they can really take over. They become kind enough to their classmates, the people in their surrounding, and in every means possible they helped them. So that was also a moment of self discovery for people like us, when we rethink of those situations, we kind of recapitulate and start thinking whether we as adults can't follow the footsteps of the young people, that the path that they were showing. Sometimes we fall short of the courage and the empathy that they were showing. So really that was a moment of self discovery for me, at least, and I believe so for many people like me who found a ray of hope. And I believe that we the teachers, we do not always teach the student, we do not always train the students. We in turn also learn a lot from the students. So these are the things which we in turn have learned really from the students.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, learning is it's a continuous process and it is irrespective of gender. So yes, gender and age and everything, we get to learn at our different stages of life from different people, from the young ones, from our peers, from our elders. It's a continuous process. So thank you, ma'am. Coming to Yashika, it would be wonderful if you would recommend books that explore the importance of compassion in improving mental health and wellness. And you are welcome to talk about how both fiction and non-fiction books of your choice.
Sure. I love fiction reading more than non-fiction reading. So I would like to highlight like two books which actually have helped me in many ways. Like just understand these intricacies of like just compassion and just like the basic nature of human beings when they are put in like unwarranted or unexpected situations. So the first book that really like kind of changed my perspective was this book called the boy in the stripped pajamas. I don't know if any of you have read that book and love the book as much as I do. It's the author's name is John Boyne, right? And a statement about the premise of the book is that it's the book is actually about friendship, and this friendship forms in the most unexpected situation because on one side is a boy who is actually like the son of the commander of the commander who is in command of the Auschwitz camp, which is set in like World War II, right? The German concentration camps. So his son, they move into this new house, and his son befriends a boy of the same age, alas, who's on the other side of the camp and who is a Jewish boy who is trapped there with his family. and there's just like, this fence in the middle of them, right? And that is how they develop their friendship. And I won't say a lot if, someone wants to pick up the book and read it, but the premise is this: very unexpected situations, hardly 9 to 10 year old two boys who do not understand, like, these greater things at play. But then just how some compassion, some empathy changes like the entire lives of these boys. And they just it's a wonderful book. So that is one. And the second book that I would like to highlight, and actually there's a movie about this first book and the second book that I'm going to talk about. So if someone's not interested in like reading the whole book, there's a movie. The second book is called The Help. And what The Help does is, it features one of my like favorite actresses. What The Help essentially does is highlight the kind of socio-political dynamics of the United States. So it talks about how the relationship between, like, black maids who are employed into the house of like rich white people. And this is set like in 50s, if I'm not wrong, during the civil right when the civil rights movement had just started. Right? If I'm not wrong. So it just like highlights and portrays like the intricacies of these relationships where, these women, these like, domestic help, these black women, they spend so much time with their children as their nannies, as their, maids, as helpers in the house. And what is the relationship and what is the lens through which like the, counterpart, the white women, see them. And there's this, I would like to like, highlight one very like sweet statement, right, which I say to myself when I'm feeling very very low, right? And I want to be kind to myself when no one is around to understand, like, I've gone through this. So it's, you is kind, you is smart, you is important. So a black nanny is saying this to a little girl that she takes care of when she's just like, had a fight with someone, or like, her mom has like, scolded her, and she just runs into the arms of this nanny because she's like essentially like raising her. And she says this statement: you is kind, you is smart, you is important. And that just like, brings a smile on that little girl's face as it does on mine. So I would like to recommend these two books. They also have movies, so if anyone wants to like pick either, but I just feel like they would, yeah, help explain this importance of, just empathy and mental health and wellness.
Thank you so much, Yashika. And coming to the end of the show, we have it's gone through a wonderful session. We had a very healthy discussion. We had gone through multiple perspectives as to how we view empathy and compassion, and how society can be such a better place to live in. So yes, we as human beings should be empathetic and compassionate to every living being, and charity begins at home. And we know that there is an imminent uh, disaster that is soon going to strike. Mocha or Mocha or Mocha, as some are calling, is soon approaching. Please take care of yourself. Please take care of your friends, of your family. Don't forget about the stray animals as well. They are voiceless, so they need your help. And they do need your shelter and care. And as Yashika has said, you is kind, you is smart, and you is important. Now, coming to the main part, tell me your story calls for submissions on the story prompt, letters from Santa. Registrations are also open for the writing season 10. We hope to hear from you. Till then, stay well, stay happy, stay together. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
You
night.
too. Take care. Good night. Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you.